But people, it's what Arnold said is very true. He said if someone wants to have big muscles and increase his muscle mass or his body definition, you know what? Come to me. I've been Mr. World. I've studied everything. I'm a sort of an expert in this field. Now, why would you not trust the expert virologist who says to you that this is what you have to do to counter the virus? I cannot understand why not. So I'm very much. It was great to hear that these kind of high-profile individuals come out with very positive messages like this. And people listen to the people who know more than you, and do not go onto internet and lend your ears out and start believing every second Tom, Dick, and Harry and their opinions about what is not scientifically been proven. These guys do it for a living. They know. I trust them, and that's why I listen to them. Everybody else, how was the weekend? Condolences to those people who've waited so long for the Premier League season to start again and whose teams didn't win. I've got somebody that, and I hate that person, still stuck somewhere in the mountains because the roads have been closed because of the snow. Went out to Eastern Cape for a weekend and got stuck in the snow, or not stuck in the snow, but got stuck en route because the roads are dangerous. Of course, yes. Thanks, Lydia, for reminding me. You can share that with the rest of the class later on, because they don't really. It's not an inside joke, but it's probably not too many people can relate to that. Anybody else? Anything in particular that you at this point? I said just now in the previous class to students, do not wait till that specific allocated session on your timetable if you have questions related to an assignment or any other questions. I am at the moment, because all of you have been in the CBD, consumer behavior class in the first semester. I know there are some issues related to the results. I've been in between classes this morning. I've been in contact with Mrs. Christians and Mrs. Barnos on campus to address these issues. We are double and triple checking you, and they are not going to be in a disadvantaged position. We want to make sure that everything is correct, but we also admit that during the first semester, all of us were making mistakes because in getting used to new systems. So please, we are aware of your concerns, and if I have to schedule, not if, I think I want to schedule a session specifically for that group and discuss in general the results, as well as any possible issues that we might have with individual results, and then those individuals, because we cannot share individual results with the group, I will address individually as well. But please, as I have suggested before, we can't resolve a problem if we are not aware of the problem, and I encourage you to please share with me. I don't take it personally. I take it as part of a learning process. We are definitely much better prepared for the second semester, and nobody will be discredited in any manner. But my apologies if I haven't got back to you yet, because it's still unfortunately work in progress, and there are many reasons for that, which it's not necessary to go into detail at the moment. Any other questions, anybody related to the work that we've done thus far? Yes, sorry.
Yes, sir. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure that the textbook that we need to buy is not the PDF version, but the actual textbook itself.
As the feedback I gave on Friday, Jessica, it's fine if it's a PDF. I cannot. It's a recommended learning resource, which basically implies that not. You know what? It's difficult financial times. So if you cannot afford a particular if there are students who cannot afford very expensive textbooks, the format that you have available is sufficient. I went through, I got feedback from the publisher, and I had a look at both of the 2019 and the 2015 editions, edition 10 and 11. I couldn't really find any thing but a few cosmetic changes or differences between the two editions. You should be fine with edition 10, and if it's a PDF format, it's also fine. It depends on, again, on each individual. Some individuals prefer to have a hard copy. Some individuals prefer an electronic version. Some a combination of the two. It's entirely up to the student as to which one they prefer to obtain. But either edition 10 or 11, whichever you can get your hands on at the most affordable price, is going to be fine. There's no content that's different that's going to that might discredit you in any way, impact negatively on your learning process.
Okay, thank you, sir.
No problem. Right. So one, let me go back one. The image of the textbook on the screen, that is the 11th edition of Jobber and Lancaster. But maybe I should have put an image of edition 10 on there as well. I'll do it for next session. So you can just differentiate between the two when you're doing your searches. But I've tried to, at least at this point, have as much of the content embedded in the slides, just in case students are still struggling to get their hands on either one of the copies that would be appropriate. Right, where does it leave us? We left the first week with a sort of a overview, or we finished off on Friday with an overview of what we did in week 1. I didn't want to start new work. I just sort of summarized on Friday, and I think that's probably the sensible trend to continue with for the semester, that we continue in that fashion. And because I know at the end of the week your attention spans and enthusiasm is not as great as it is at the beginning of the week, and therefore to me, I would much rather prefer to have our Friday sessions to be a sort of a discussion session on assignments and progress on work and specific course-related questions that you have, so we keep on top of problems as they arise, and not wait until they become something too serious for us to really attend to. Right, this particular chapter, again, is work that you have probably been exposed to. I'm quite convinced that you have been exposed to that in year 1 in business marketing. And for me, at this point, at the start, I think it's important again to just reiterate and ensure that there's a clear understanding and that you can distinguish between those 3 concepts that we have on the screen: objectives, strategies, and tactics. Maybe I should just go one slide forward and maybe just have a look at the video first, and then we go back and we discuss what we Right, I don't want to watch the rest of the video. Basically, people, what it comes down to is that was just a post-match analysis of a specific situation that if we apply to those three concepts, the Springboks had the objective against the Lions to win the test. That's number one. You want to win the test, and then you want to win the series. The strategies that they have is to, as they indicated, is for the loose forwards to put a lot of pressure. And I'm sorry to use rugby examples, and I know it's not relevant to, and not too many people can relate to that, but I'll share another example with you afterwards. And that is the strategies. The strategy is for the loose forwards, like in this case, Peter Steph, to put a lot of pressure on the Lions defender, therefore rushing him so the kick is not as long. And if the kick is not long and the kick is rushed, then maybe we can counter-attack, which exactly happened. And then, as indicated, because the loose forwards were the people who were rushing up to put the pressure on your two locks, number 4 and number 5, it's a bit indicated where the space is. And that's where the communication happens between the players on the field. The strategy was exactly that. The strategy was to pressure them to kick so they can counter-attack. The tactics might change. The tactics might change from minute 10 to minute 15 in a game, for instance, where if it's a line-out, for instance, the locks will be involved and the loose forwards will be people putting on the pressure. If it's a scrum, it's going to be slightly different. And as a result of that, the tactics vary, but the end result and objectives still stay the same. If this does not work, then is a plan B, which is a strategy B that includes different forms of tactics. I was fortunate enough when I worked in London in the late 80s and early 90s to work as a semi-professional tennis coach, but also I was working at a venue that had where a lot of the players, the professional players, and those were the eras before the Federers and the Sampras's. We're talking about Boris Beckers and the McEnroes and the Jimmy Connors, which your parents will know. But those legends stayed in the same area that I lived in, and they visited our club and they trained there. And I had an interesting conversation with one of them. I'm not going to disclose the person's name because I'm not a name-dropping individual. But what was important for me was how that individual, left-handed player, indicated to me his different strategies to, obviously, the objective is to win the game. The objective is to win the next point. The objective is to win the next set or game, to win the set, and then eventually the game. The different tactics, as a left-hander, you know that if you're serving to the left-hand side of the court, if you serve down the middle of the line, you're always on the right, especially if you're playing a right-handed opponent, you are serving on his weaker side. And exactly the same on the opposite. If you are serving to the right-hand side of the court, if you also serve to the right-hand side of the service lines, then you will also be on the targeting the weaker side of a right-handed player. That's why players like Nadal has been in the modern era has been so successful, because he's a left-hander. It's very difficult to defend against a left-hander if you're a right-hander. These are all examples, people, and I'm sorry if I'm only sharing sport-related examples with you, but hopefully most of you. Another one. Maybe some of you are petrol heads and you into racing. For instance, Brad Binder yesterday winning the Austrian Grand Prix. He had a decision to make. He was in 6th position. There were 5 people ahead of him, but they were in the same group, so anything could still happen. He then decided when it started raining not to go into the pits and change to wet weather tires, but to stay on track. You realize that they will probably only join the race about 30 seconds or 40 seconds behind him once they have changed the tires. This is not Formula One where you change the tires of the bike or the car within 5-6 seconds. He decided to stay on the track. It was a risky move because it was slick tires on a very icy, slippery surface. But he's probably his team calculated that if he stayed on his bike and if he stayed in the race and he's not taking any risks, he should, with 3 laps to go, still keep his advantage. Now his advantage was 40 seconds when they made that decision. By the time that the final, when he actually won the race, he only won by 9 seconds. So obviously it was a calculated risk, but it was in this case a very well calculated strategy by his team to keep him in on the track on wet tires, and believing that the time gap between and the time left in the race, the number of laps left in the race, would be sufficient for them to still win, and which they did. So these are all kinds of examples of strategies and basically indicating the route in how you intend to reach your objectives, and then obviously the tactics are the ones that change on a sort of a on a more regular basis, because your objectives still remain the same. You still, as a business, want to make 5 million rand for the next financial year. You know that you have to increase your sales by 10% to do that. That's your objective. Your strategies is a clear laid plan on exactly how we're going to do that. We're going to make 1,000 calls every month, to make about 200 appointments, to make about 100 sales if you want to reach that target and make that and reach that objective that we have this year of increasing our sales by 10%. Our tactics, in other words, how we need to prospect, where we need to find clients, how do we find those 1,000 people that we're going to phone, that might vary based on circumstances and from industry to industry. And the sales industry has been hit very hard as a result of COVID, but they were forced to obviously change and modify their plans. The principles still remain the same, the way in which, in other words, the strategies were still the same, but we had to change our tactics on how we want to achieve those objectives as a result of, in most recent times, the impact that the pandemic had on life in general and in business specific. The planning process is something that all of you are familiar with, hopefully. It's quite simple. It's a popular illustration that can be used to apply in certain case or in a case study. If I want to determine if the student has the ability to, or if the student understands the different steps and the process and the order in which the different steps happen. So yes, it's something that it's a question that might pop it in up in a test or examination. None of it is unfamiliar to you. We all know that most of any process starts by identifying either a problem and then setting specific objectives. In this case, we don't have a problem, we just have objectives. The business has a objective of that they need to reach, but within the marketing objective, they have specific sales targets and sales objectives that they want to achieve as well. That's where step 1 in the top left corner comes in, and that is where you set your objectives. You also obviously, and all of these steps are self-explanatory and very clear, and they follow each other chronologically. If you want to reach your objectives, it's very important to ensure that you identify what actions you need to take, what activities needs to be involved in the process of reaching and achieving those objectives. To organize all those activities in the correct order is step number 3. That's organizing and taking action. That's your action plan. That's where the strategies start coming in. To implement it, and obviously to ensure that you measure it correctly, and continuously to ensure that you are actually achieving those objectives that you have set. Why wait and complete the full 6 steps to do a re-evaluation or to do an adjustment? You don't have to necessarily get to step number 6, which is re-evaluating and controlling, if when you at point number 5 already see, oh, something is wrong, or at point number 4 when you're implementing, says, no, okay, maybe this is not going to work. We thought it might, but it's not going to change it then. That's where the tactics come in. And that's where you change, even before the process has completed, you change it already. And then, although you have changed it during the process, you are still going to obviously measure the results against what you have set as an objective at the start. And we all know the end result. It's positive, you stick with it, you repeat it, and you improve it. If it didn't work, you know what? Fix it, reevaluate, find new ways of doing it. Sorry, this kicking game didn't work. We lost a series against the Lions, or maybe my serving game wasn't good enough. Maybe the coach of my opponent was as clever as my coach, and you also had a plan in place to counter my specific tactic. Or maybe the goals that we have set ourselves in a very difficult economic climate globally has been unrealistic, and therefore we have to not change our tactics or change our strategies necessarily, but we need to change our objectives. Maybe we're just aiming too high. Those are all potential reasons why we have to modify our strategies and our tactics on a continuous basis almost. And even more so if we go to the next screen, which is another illustration basically of what we said already. It's almost a continuous process of changing our tactics, and we will change our tactics before we change our strategies. The last thing we will change is our objectives. If you can find a different way, if you can find different tactics and different strategies to still reach the same objective, that is still first prize. We want to actually keep our objectives the same, because we can motivate why we have reached or set those specific objectives, because we've applied the SMART principle. We know that they are specific, we know that they are measurable, we know that they are achievable, realistic, and that they are time-bound. And because of that, we don't want to change our objectives, but we maybe need to change something. The first thing you'll change is try different tactics. If the different tactics doesn't work, then you know what? Maybe we should have a different strategy, because different strategies come with different tactics as well. Okay, so those are just to give you a clearer picture of what we, what as part of the planning process, what is most important for us is to change what we can change quickly. And that is the tactics, which are daily operations. What are we going to do on a day-to-day basis to reach our objectives? To change that is easier than to change our objectives. In a business environment, if you want to change your objective, you need to get the whole board of executives together. And there's a whole process that you go through. It's a time-consuming process. If you change the tactics, it's a question of somebody saying, go with that, not that. No, that's the ugly dress, go with the blue one, not the red one. That's an immediate decision that you can change now at the instant. You don't really, the person making the decision, the tactical change, is this person who has the authority to do that, which is not always the case when you change objective, because it is done on a high level and there's more people involved and more people that need to be considered. Right, all good at this stage? Everybody still on the same page?
Yes, sir.
Good. None of these are strange or new concepts to you. It's a question of revisiting some of them so we can actually form a proper basis and a launching pad before we continue to new work that you probably have not dealt with in the past. Right. If we want to set clear objectives, if we want to set realistic objectives, at the next, if we want to set those smart objectives, we need to ensure that we understand our market. We need to analyze internally what our own capabilities are. And can anybody remember from year one, business marketing, what that internal audit represents? There are a few keywords in the text there that will give it away. What does the internal audit entail? 4 letters. Anybody? What are those 4 letters? Seriously? Take a guess. Anybody? Going. Nobody. I'm quite convinced that you do know.
Sorry, SWOT.
Of course. And
I'm like thinking, what is internal audit? And I see the word market analysis, and I was like, oh, yes, SWOT, yo.
It's the information lie in the final bullet point. Strengths, weaknesses, internal. It's your SWOT analysis, and it's SWOT, not SWOT, not SWAT. Okay, we're not in combat, people. Internal audit basically reflects the components of the SWOT analysis that reflect on your internal strengths and your weaknesses of your business. Determining what your capacity is. There's no point in setting an objective if you know you can't achieve it. Okay, you need to know what you are capable of doing. Okay, I can go toe to toe with Frank Bruno. I watched some boxing on the weekend as well, because that was also something that I was fortunate to be part of in 1989, and that's when Frank Bruno and Mike Tyson fought their first fight, which only lasted 5 minutes, but almost brought the whole of the UK to a standstill. Because I still believe that Frank Bruno was one of the better boxers that ever represented England, or was or English boxer there ever was. Definitely in the heavyweight division, anyway. And it was so apparent to me that if you wanted to determine what your abilities are, you need to know that you can go toe to toe with your competitors. Frank Bruno knew that if he didn't hit Mike Tyson very hard and very and regularly in the first 5 rounds, that he's not going to last the fight. That was his whole tactic. And obviously it didn't work in the first fight or the second one 10 years later. But the reality is that you need to know in business what you are capable of. If you know that you cannot achieve this, I know I can't run. I can run a 3.3 kilometer, 3 minutes 30 kilometer in well, probably not even 1, let alone 21 for a half marathon, and let alone 42 for a marathon. If you know you can't do that, you know what? You've got to adjust your objectives accordingly. Yes, and that's why you're doing it internally. You start with what you can do and what you can control. You know what your weaknesses are, and in business and in sport and all walks of life, it's exactly the same. That's why we do the internal audit, which is a SWOT analysis to determine what we are good at and what we're not so good at. We focus on the ones that we are good at and we try and improve them so we can become better, and we actually try and improve our weaknesses so they actually hopefully can become a strength. When we're looking at our external audit, which is also important because that's still part of the market analysis, we can make the best laid plans, but at the end of the day, the economy is dead and no customers have money to buy the products that we are offering. We need to know that. We need to ensure that we are aware of the political, the economical, social, technological, legal, and environmental factors that can impact our business and our ability to perform at the level that we want to. Okay, so that's the internal and external audit, and we've addressed that one already. We need to obviously ensure that our objectives are smart objectives. Right, people, not to rush through a Monday, and I know that our attention span this time on a Monday is pretty much the same as this time on a Sunday afternoon. It's not very high, and therefore I'm not going to start with something new. I'm much rather going to resume with this. I can summarize it. If there's anybody that has any questions specifically related to what we have done today or the assignments, I'm more than welcome to answer any questions. Otherwise, let me just check the timetable. Otherwise, we will chat to each other again on Wednesday, and that will be for the fourth period at 11:05, if I'm correct. Is that correct? Can anybody confirm that? 11:05 on Wednesday?
Yes.
Good. Any other questions, anybody? Thank you very much.
Sir.
Lydia's got the same as me. Okay, we're all on the same page. Nobody else? No questions?
Hi, sir. I have a question. Regarding our term test.
Yes.
You gave us like roughly dates when that will be. Can you maybe just say them again, please?
I
think it was like end of September or something.
Yeah, just bear with me for a second. I'm going to go through my notepad, and it's going to be much quicker than going through or opening the correct file. We were requested to submit dates to the tests are spread evenly between all the modules. For sales and operations, the suggested date, which has been temporarily approved, because I can only confirm that once it comes from the top, but that was the 27th of September.
Okay, thank you, sir.
In other words, it's the Monday after the long weekend, after the September long weekend.
Okay, because I'm going away that weekend, so I wanted to prepare myself.
You've got to start doing revision now already, yes. No, it's fine. But again, the format we'll discuss as soon as I have approval of the date, because those are all provisional dates that were given by all the different modules. That's part of your course. We specifically looked at it. I couldn't see anything. It looked as if every second day there was a test. In some cases, only every third day, which is ideal. But yeah, you can make your long-term plans very, very soon, because I'm pretty sure that those days are going to stay the same. I'll just follow up, and hopefully by Wednesday I can confirm to you that those days are going to be approved. And you can make your long-term plans, and that can also help us with our preparation to ensure that that you guys know the exact format. And I think I stand to be corrected, but I think why do I think it's an open book test? Yeah, I think it is open book test. But anyway, I'll confirm that on Wednesday. I'll check those things that I can inform you of. I'll share with you on Wednesday. Okay, but the date at this stage stays as the 27th of September.
Okay, thank you, sir. And I think all of our tests are open book.
I believe it is, yes. They want us to give you open book, but some more applied work, obviously, and not just yeah, give us back what's already in the textbook. But I think I constructed the paper accordingly as well. Right, I'll confirm that on Wednesday. The format of the test, and obviously I think it's a 2-hour paper, the marks and everything. Okay, let's just do that right at the start of the semesters, and there's clarity and you know what you're walking towards.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
No problem at all. Thanks. Enjoy the rest of the day. That's the bit that's left. Stay safe, and we chat again on Wednesday. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.